All right. Hello, hello, and welcome to the Risk It with Kristi podcast. I am Kristi, and today I'm so excited to introduce Nate to you guys. How are you, Nate?
I'm doing great. What's up, Kristi? It's good to be on the pod and to just have conversation with you again.
For sure, for sure. It's always a good conversation when we talk, so I'm excited for this episode. So, for anyone who doesn't know Nate, I will introduce him now. So, he is a Puerto Rican powerhouse in
Let's
the
go.
endurance and nutrition world. Someone who doesn't just talk the talk, but literally runs the miles. Nate is a sports and performance dietitian, a run coach, and the mastermind behind Buenos Diaz Performance, which I will say is like the cutest name. That was so catchy. We're gonna totally talk about how you came up with that,
I
but
love
I love
it.
it so much. He is on a mission to help runners optimize every meal, every mile, and every moment of their training, but that's not all. He's also a husband to the best dentist in South Florida, a proud dog dad, a backyard chicken whisperer, and an all around amazing human being. If you're looking to level up your endurance, fuel it like a pro, and push past your limiting beliefs, this episode is for you. So let's get into it. So I want to start first. I kind of gave everyone the synopsis, but I want to start first with little Nate. Where was little Nate? What growing up, what did that look like? If we don't want to go that far, we can talk about where was he before sports and nutrition came into his life, or maybe that was something always present in your life. What were your dreams and aspirations? And then we can pivot into current day and all of that stuff.
Cool. Yeah. So, first off, thank you for having me on the podcast, and thank you for that amazing introduction. Funny thing about the chicken. So recently, somebody sent me something, and I thought it was the catchiest thing, where they were like, "Nate, you and Janelle are truly chicken tenders," and I was like, "Nice. I
Oh
like
my
that."
God, I saw that. I should have taken
So that's kind of been like we've just been embracing that title of
I
chicken
love that.
tenders. But yeah,
That
so
could
thank
be
you for that.
a whole new page because I'm the first student when it comes to your like chicken uh
Yeah,
programs that you do of
yeah,
education.
yeah. No, we're out here. We're doing the urban homesteading thing. We got the chickens and everything, and obviously at a time right now where you can only get one carton of eggs per household, or with the shortage, it definitely comes in handy. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I look
so
at you
super.
guys and I'm like, you know that like star-eyed emoji? I'm like,
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at what
yeah.
they're doing in their chickens. So I'm
Yeah,
so
it's
excited
been fun.
for that.
Yeah,
For
it's
me,
been
for
fun.
that.
So all right. So young Nate, young Nate was someone who was always, I grew up an only child. My younger brother, he didn't come into the picture until I was 10. So with that big of an age difference, it was really just like me, myself, and I for the longest time. My mom always says I never fell into that like single only child mentality. I was definitely still a humble kid growing up, but I was always outside playing sports. I was always outside with friends because those were my brothers and sisters. I didn't have anybody at
Right.
home. And so I grew up on the baseball field. I grew up playing sports really my whole life since I was 3, 4 years old. And so sports has always been a part of my lifestyle. Physical activity has always been a part of my lifestyle. And so that transitioned into high school, which transitioned into college. And then obviously it's something that I still embrace to this day. But really, it was my parents that got me into sports. They saw that there was potential in the sport of baseball, and so that's what they threw me in. And I had a pretty
What position
promising.
did you play?
What position did I play?
Yeah.
So I was a catcher pretty much my entire career.
Okay.
When I got to high school, I played a little bit of like third base on my days off from catching, but I always kind of fell into a leadership role as a catcher. I called pitches. I was the one that was organizing different plays if runners were on different positions. And so I think that's where I kind of started developing like my leadership qualities, was the position that I played. And so yeah, that transitioned into high school where I was able to be on the varsity team as a freshman, where I led my team as a sophomore. And so physical activity, sports has just been my passion for so long. My goal my entire life was to be a professional baseball player. It was something that my dad and my parents had kind of instilled, that confidence that I could be that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what my mission was. My mission was to get through school because the end goal was to play
What
professional
was what
baseball.
was your dream team?
Oh, my dream. I mean, if I could have played, honestly, if I could have played for like the Cubs or the Yankees, that the Yankees was the team that I grew up like seeing a lot of the World Series happening. I played with Tino Martinez's son. I was able
Oh
to,
wow.
yeah, I was able to kind of play with the kids of the guys that I was seeing because Tampa's spring training, or the Yankees
Yeah,
spring
the Tampa
training
is where the Yankees.
is
Same here. My oldest sister was a huge Yankees fan, and we had the Yankees channel on the TV, and her
nice.
whole room was Yankees. So all summers, we were never allowed to go out. All summer, all we would do is watch their practices, watch their old games. That was
Yeah.
like the era, you know?
That was it. Yeah, I always wanted to be in that pinstripe. But I was also at the same time like growing up in a Chicago fan base household, right? So
Yeah.
big Chicago Bears fan with Cubs, that comes with that as well. But yeah, so I aspired to be that. But when I actually had the chance to try out for the different teams, I was like, whoever's going to take me. So I tried out for the Marlins, tried out for the Tigers, tried out for all these different teams that host spring training here in Florida. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's kind
That's
of,
exciting.
yeah, that was
Never the
my
overachiever, I must say. Varsity in ninth grade. You've always
yeah,
been charging at it.
yeah. So yeah, no, that was kind of the young Nate era. There were some issues in college that kind of put my career to a stop with baseball. It was actually kind of it just happened out of nowhere. It was a very sudden shift, and that's when I had to make the decision. Okay, like what do I do? Like the baseball career has to stop right now for a time.
Yeah.
So that's when I kind of dove into school and was like, okay, well, let me set myself up with a plan B, which that eventually led me into the space of nutrition.
Gotcha. So how was that? Okay, so let's dive into that moment of like, I have set up my entire life for this vision. Because this is something that is huge. I remember my nephew kind of going through this when he broke his clavicle. His dream was football, and like you are primed and excited, and you have one goal your entire life, and then all of a sudden there has to be a pivot. It's not going to work out anymore. How was that mentally on you? Were you expecting that? Was it something that you had time to process, or was it something that you had to really overcome?
I think it was definitely something that I had to overcome, and I really had 2 years to to think about this, because at the time it's not like how it is today in college athletics where you can kind of just bounce to a different school the next year. I
Yeah.
had to wait 2 years before even considering, because I was a freshman. I had to wait 2 years before even transferring to a different school. Um, so that time allowed me to kind of process what was going on, because I knew I wasn't going to play baseball for at least 2 years.
Right.
And but I think the hardest part was that coming out of high school, my last game of high school, I had a college career already set, right? So
Right.
I took for granted that last game. I was, and it was an epic game that we lost. It was a moment of my career where, it was one of those, like, you build that scene where it's like guys on third, Nate's up to bat, 2 outs. We need to score this run in order to win the game. And I hit a ball I thought was going to be a home run, and the guy was all the way to the back of the fence, and he caught this pop fly. And
Uh,
yeah, so it was like this really emotional end to high school, but I left that game like yeah, high school is over, but like I got to get ready for college. Like I'm stepping into the next phase. So I didn't embrace the moment in high school. And I think when I stopped playing baseball my freshman year, when everything happened, that's the first thing that I thought about, is
Oh,
that I
man.
missed an opportunity to be present in a moment that I didn't think was going to be the end. And so that was the hardest thing for me to get over, because my high school career was probably my favorite part of my entire baseball journey, because it was a huge just accomplishment, the things that I was able to do in high school. Um, so yeah, that was the part that I think was the hardest to get over. And so, but
It gave
in
me
that,
chills when you said that. Like you weren't present in the moment because you didn't think it was the end. And
yeah,
it's that I say it and it almost makes me emotional because it's
mhm,
we're just so busy moving on to the next thing and not, and as you become an adult, as you become an adult,
mhm,
everything starts to pile up on you that you really like. That's such a powerful statement. i
yeah,
i wasn't able to appreciate the moment because I didn't know it was the end.
yeah, yeah,
Ooh.
yeah, yeah. It reminds me of so I'm a huge like Office. I love The Office. I love the show. I'm a huge nerd when it
Oh
comes to
my
that.
god, yes,
But
please.
there's a part where Andy Bernard, one of the characters, he goes, sometimes he's like, wouldn't it be nice if you knew you were in the good old days before you left the good old days, right? And I think that kind of resonated with me in this season, was that like the good old days were the high school, because my career ended after that, right?
Yeah.
So, but I didn't know it was the good old days until after the fact, right? So
Yeah.
it's I think, to your point, it's important to, that's why, like, right now in my current stage of life, I'm very intentional with being present, whether good or bad situations, whether it's a good season, whether it's a season where I'm in a valley. Being present just allows for so much to be gained out of that moment, versus just thinking, okay, when's the next thing going to happen, when's the next thing
Right.
going to happen, because a lot of my valleys in life, growth has happened, lessons have been learned in those times. So if I'm
Mhm.
just speeding past it, like, okay, when is the good part going to happen? You lose an opportunity to learn and grow in those moments.
Yeah, I think of it as, I'm like a crazy plant lady. I think of it as, if you're not growing, you're dying, because that's
Hmm.
everything in nature. And just because one year the tree doesn't bear fruit doesn't mean that the roots aren't getting stronger. So
Mm,
you may not see it on a surface level, but there's always growth happening in some way.
mm,
So it is, it's important to, like you said, relish in every moment, feel every feeling,
yeah.
and just always bring that to the forefront. But I'm a person who always lives like 10 years ahead,
Hmm.
and everything I do right now is like laying the groundwork for 10 years from now. And
Yeah.
so I get very lost in enjoying laying the groundwork because I'm
Yeah.
just so forward facing, like forward looking.
Yeah.
Um, so once you were able to digest that, process that, what obviously it makes sense that you stay in the sports world. That's where your passion is. If you can't be on the field, at least, help the people that are on the field in
Hmm.
some way, and in that aspect. But at what point did you decide that nutrition, because it was nutrition that you went into first?
Yeah. So I initially went into, I was trying to, when I figured out, hey, baseball's not going to be the end goal, or that's not the plan anymore. I went into the medical space. So I initially was going to school to become a physician, and
Okay.
then just after shadowing doctors and just looking at the curriculum and being involved in the curriculum, I realized, like, hey, this isn't the direction I want to go.
Hmm.
So I decided to change to becoming a PA, which
Okay.
is kind of a doctor, the same thing, but you're just, it's in a different position, but very similar task, right? And so
Okay.
after that, in order to become a PA, you have to have a certain amount of clinical hours on the field, whether you're a scribe, an EMT, medical assistant, whatever it looks like, right? So I decided to become an EMT. So I was on the ambulance, did the whole 911, lights and sirens. Like, it was an amazing experience. But it was in that moment that I realized I didn't want to be on that side of medicine. I wanted to
Mhm.
be on the preventative side because I was getting called to diabetic crisis. I was getting called to heart attacks. I was getting called to all these different medical emergencies that I later learned can be prevented through food. And I was like, well, okay, if my goal, because I think ultimately my goal from when I started college is I wanted to be in a profession where I was making an impact, where I was changing
Right.
people's lives for the better. I just felt like that was a calling on my life from day one. And so I was like, okay, well, if I'm on you get admitted to the hospital, now I'm pushing medication, like is that really making an impact the way that I see fit? And it wasn't. And so that's when I decided, okay, well, let me look into like this whole science of food. Let me better understand how food affects the body. And then at the same time, selfishly, I was trying to just enhance my performance and my physique and the way I look. And
Mhm.
I figured, okay, well, I'm not going to do it, using gear or steroids. So like I want to do it
Right.
the natural way. And so that's when I got exposed to how nutrition impacts the body, both physically, lab work inside, like how it just impacts the entire body. And I was absolutely fascinated. And then I realized, well, hey, there's actually a profession that's dedicated to helping people mitigate chronic illnesses, disease, but also enhance performance and things like that. And it's called being a dietitian. And so that's where that kind of got the spark, and the rest was history from there. I just continued just diving into learning and decided to go get my master's in nutrition, and that's what led me to Miami. So
That's amazing. So at what point in that career, like what was your thought processes during college that of what the next step was going to be? Obviously, there's people who immediately want to open up their own practice. There's different avenues that you can go from. What was your first thought process on okay, how I'm because was your first gig out the gate in sports, or was it general nutrition dietitian? How did that
mhm.
look like?
Yeah, so right out of the gate, so while I was in school, I knew I wanted to be a sports dietitian. I knew I wanted to work with teams, I wanted to work with elite athletes. And so that was always the goal. I actually did part of my internship at the University of Florida. So I packed up my stuff, moved with a buddy who was also becoming a dietitian, and we lived in Gainesville for actually 8 months. And that's where I really got engulfed in this like field of sports nutrition. So I knew at that point, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to help athletes. I want to be on the ground with these athletes, fueling them. And so at that point, Janelle, my wife, had moved to Boston to start her journey with becoming a dentist. And so right out of the gate, I'm like, okay, this is the profession I want to be in. However, at the time, it was highly selective. There wasn't a lot of positions open, right? So
Yeah, I was
now,
gonna ask that industry seems like it's not that it's not that easy to get into.
yeah, no, it's very difficult. If you think about it, there's only X amount of collegiate teams. And at the time, not all of them were hiring dietitians. Right now, we're in a better spot where you can find jobs a little bit easier. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, with this profession, is you have to move where the job is, right? So I had the choice of like, okay, I had gotten an offer from the University of Florida to stay there. But my wife was in Boston. So I was like, well, that's not going
At
to
this
work.
point, were you married or not
We
yet?
were we were married. Yeah, we got married. So this was my wife and I got married in May of 2016, and this was February of 2017 that I was like faced with this decision of like, what do I do?
Okay.
So I ended up moving to Boston. Obviously, I'm not going to leave my wife high and dry up there. So
Mhm.
then I was confined to what's in Boston, like Boston Red Sox. You have the Patriots, all that stuff. But again, highly
Going for
selective.
the enemy over there.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Um, but yeah, so there weren't any opportunities. So I, my thought was, or when I got out of school, was like, I want to be a sports dietitian, but the cards that were presented to me didn't allow me to be in that position until because 5 years after is when I got the job at UM. So for 5 years, I was like I was doing jobs that I didn't necessarily want to be doing. I was a server at the same time as I was a dietitian, so I would be doing nutrition by day and then serving tables by night.
Hustler.
But yeah, no, I was getting after it. So yeah, so that's kind of what my journey was. Is I've always wanted to be in sports, but um, I wasn't dealt those cards right out the gate, and so I had to adjust and figure it out.
So what was that like? Because you're in a whole different city, not because necessarily you want to be, because you're supporting your wife and her dreams, obviously, and her schooling. You're trying to pursue your goal, because I feel like this is something a lot of people can relate to. They have a goal, they have a dream, they have something they studied for, or they just want to put effort towards, but it's not easy, like you're dealt all these different cards, and then you still got to pay the bills.
Hmm.
What was like the root of that mental toughness for you, of like, all right, well, we're gonna go over here, this is what we're gonna do. If I have to wait tables, I'll wait tables. What was the root cause of that? Or is that just how you've always been? Describe that to me a little bit.
Yeah, I think it was a mixture of like we had bills and we had to, we had financial obligations that we had to tend to. But then it was also just this like hard work kind of hustler mentality that I think I've been able to carry, is just like, we're going to figure out a way to get it done. If that means I got to serve tables, I got to serve tables. If that, whatever that means, I'm going to do. Um, but one thing that in hindsight that I kind of look back at that period of time is that I wasn't in the position that I wanted to be in, but I think I was in the position that I needed to be in. And so what I mean by that is that even though I wasn't in sports, even though I wasn't, serving tables, I tried to gain something from that experience, right? So the first job I ever got as a dietitian, it was an 8 hour a week position that I had to travel an hour and a half to by train. What did that teach me? Well, that taught me just just to be patient and just to be grateful for having something. But in that position, I was able to fight to get that actual position increased to a 20-hour a week position. So here's this kid fresh out of getting his master's, really not that much experience in the field, but I saw a problem with only having a dietitian in a facility for 8 hours a week. And so it taught me how to talk to executives. It taught me how to formulate presentations to get my point across and to convince people on like higher up level that we have a need that needs to be met. So that experience kind of taught me that. What did serving tables teach me? Well, serving tables taught me how to adapt to people from all different backgrounds, countries, ways of thinking, right? So it allowed me to be really good at communication. It really allowed me to be able to take like my fun personality, but then
Mhm.
also create an experience for somebody that they were also having a great time, and they were able to enjoy the time that they had. So
Learning how to serve, and even in that most basic way,
mhm.
is a huge lesson that I think being in a forward facing role, it like, people don't realize that gift of learning
Yeah,
to serve the community, learning to want to give a good experience,
yep,
learning how do I make this good for you, because that's my job.
yeah,
That carries around in every area of life, I
yeah.
think.
No, it's so good, and that specific job too. So it's called legal seafoods. It's in Seaport, and very busy. I mean, it's a touristy area, very lots of foot traffic happening. And one of the things as servers that we had to do is when somebody ordered a lobster or a lobster, we had to crack it at the table, right? So just imagine you being in the weeds and then a table of six all order individual lobsters. So again, to your point, like this taught me how to serve people in chaos with a smile on my face, which
Yeah.
you fast forward to being a sports dietitian at UM. it's chaos every day. So how do you serve these athletes with a smile on your face? And I always think about those times at Legal Seafood, cracking lobsters for a guest that comes. So I talk
Awesome.
about this a lot to students that I come across, is that like the experience that you're looking for may not come to you right away, but this idea of being present in the moment, you're going to learn stuff about yourself. You're going to obtain skill set. You're going to obtain knowledge that's going to allow you to be the best person when you get to that dream position. And so it's hard to think about that in the moment because you're like, man, this is tough. I'm working 16-hour days. This isn't what I signed up for. But in hindsight, as someone who thought that and then was on the other side looking back, I tell you that each experience serves a purpose and we just have to look for that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that so at this point had you really adopted that mentality from like that last baseball game, or is this coming to you just from hindsight of being like, wow, that whole experience was what was the foundation to this?
Yeah, I think it was just like, because I had that hindsight after the high school thing happened, but then like life happens and you forget about these lessons and you get put back into a similar situation. And so I will say, like, in the moment, I was not feeling it. I was just like, I was doing it because out of necessity. I was doing it out of like just drive and determination, but I wasn't reflecting in those moments and saying, wow, today I really learned how to be a better communicator. Like I was not thinking that. It
It was
wasn't,
survival mode
it
in a
was
sense. Like
survival
you're
mode.
like, we have to get this done. It is what it
Mm-hmm.
is. Head
Mm-hmm.
down,
Yep.
un pie pa'lante,
Mm-hmm.
and like that.
Yeah.
So you lay the foundation. You learn all these things. You hustle. You drive. You pay the price. You move back to Florida. We meet.
Yep.
This beautiful friendship forms, and you get to the dream job. You get what you were looking for. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that. What did that look like? What was that feeling like? All of
Mm-hmm.
that experience.
Yeah. So when I finally, so I moved back to Miami. This was the heart of COVID. I mean, COVID is full on. I am working back at a hospital clinical setting, working with exclusively COVID patients, and I transitioned from there. And I was working at a site at the time that was a temporary hospital. So COVID was, there's so many COVID patients that they were just popping up these buildings to house these patients. So I was working in a facility like that. And then after about 4 months, they closed that facility. And so I was looking for more work, got another hospital gig at West Kendall Baptist. And quite frankly, I was content. I was happy. I had already accepted that sports is a difficult arena to just get into, right? You have to move to where the job is. I'm staying rooted here in Miami. I'm not going anywhere. So like unless something opens up in Miami, I just have to accept the fact that I may not be in sports. And so I kind of had already accepted that fate. I had already accepted like, hey, if this is what God has for me and it's just to be a great dietitian in the clinical setting, then like I'm gonna embrace it. I'm cool with it. Um, so I was there for a year at West Kendall Baptist Hospital, and I got a call from the dietitian that was there prior to me getting there, and she's like, "Hey, listen, I'm leaving. I know you're a sport dietitian here based in Miami. Are you interested in interviewing for the job?" And I was like, "Well, absolutely. Like, I would love it." But I wasn't thinking like I hadn't been counting down the days like, "Oh, when is somebody going to call me?" I was just kind of like, you know what? I love it here at Baptist, but like let's test the waters. Let's see what's up. So
At that
I,
point, did you think that there was a chance that you could get it, or were you just like, I don't know, like what was that thought process? Were you confident? Were you like, we'll
yeah,
see?
yeah, I am a firm believer, and this has just been my confidence after experiencing everything I did in Boston. If I get an interview, I'm getting the job. That's it. Like if I get in
I
front of
love
the
that.
person that's hiring, I'm getting the job.
Yeah.
So, because that's always the hardest part is like getting the interview. So I knew, hey, as long as I am authentic, as long as I am myself, I'm going to get the job. It was just a matter in my mind at that point of like, do I want it? Right. And so went on the interview, and it was actually, it's hilarious. Lewis was my leader at UM, and him and I laugh all the time. We went to it. We did this interview, and we went to Earl's in Dadeland, and I had talked to Janelle the night before. I'm like, do I order a beer? Like we're at a restaurant. Like she's like, don't do that. She's like, if he does, then you can. So I'm like, okay. So we get there, and the first thing he orders was a beer, and I was like, okay, I guess this is where we're going.
Yeah.
So I laugh with him all the time about it because it was just a funny. I think he knew that I was waiting on him, and it was just like this experience. But
Yeah.
um, so we had
Like,
our
are we gonna do this? Are we gonna
yeah,
do
like
it?
because he was like, "Oh, it's just going to be an informal interview. I just want to talk to you about the position." So I was like, "Okay, it's Earl's. It's like happy hour time. Like, are
Yeah.
we like
Are we
where's
doing
everybody's
this?
mindset? Are we doing this? Like, what's happening?" So yeah, so I think at that moment, especially after talking with him and just having good conversation, and then him inviting me to the second interview where I was interviewing with coaches and admin and stuff like that, I knew at that point that I had locked in the job. Um, but it was a matter of do I want it or not, right? I was trying to gather data on like, hey, is this move going to be good? Because I know how the sports realm is. When I was an intern at Florida, 14, 15-hour days, 7 days a week. Like I knew what I was going to be getting into. And
Yeah.
it was just me auditing like, hey, is this the season of life where I'm ready to take this on again?
Right.
So
Which is very calculated of you because normally an opportunity will come up that you've been waiting for forever, and people get so excited that they just go for it, and they don't realize that there is a price to your dream. And I think
mhm,
that taking that into account a lot of times, people don't, they want what they want, but then they don't see the other side of it.
sure.
So it's
Hmm.
good that you had that experience, that you were able to quantify that. Obviously you quantified that.
Hmm.
And what was the decision?
Yeah. So obviously they hired me, which
You
was
said
super
yes.
exciting. I said yes. I knew, and this was a conversation that I had with Janelle, is I knew that it was going to be like they were going to take a lot of my time, right? I knew that going into it, and so my plan was okay. Hey, like I'm gonna give this a fair shot. I'm gonna just dedicate everything to it. Try to build up the program so that way, no, like we don't have like I don't have to do that long term.
Hmm.
So hiring the right people, getting as much help as possible, and so yeah, so I accepted the job. It was during a time where like everybody was gone on winter break, so like I'm trying to get onboarded, but like I can't even talk to different people. Coaches aren't here, so it was a
uh,
very kind of chaotic time. But I will say this: I asked my boss at the time, why me? Like why did I stand out? Like what was it about what you saw that you chose to hire me? And they had
that's
other
such a
hire.
great question.
Yeah, because I was curious because I'm like, I know I haven't been in sports for 5 years. I haven't had a lick of like professional experience outside of my internship, which was 5 years ago, and I wasn't even an RD at that time. So like, what
And you get
was
this
it?
like serendipitous call.
Yeah,
You weren't even looking for it, right? It
no,
was, it
no,
just fell in your lap.
I was happy at Baptist. I was having a great time. I loved my team. Like it was good. I was just like, this came out of nowhere. And it was one of those things where Janelle and I had talked and I had said, listen, the only way I'm going to be in sports is if it's here in Miami, local, because I'm not moving to there to,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna jeopardize my marriage
That's
to pursue my
crazy.
career. Yeah. So they called me. So I had asked, I was like, and I knew a couple of the other applicants that were in the pool. And I'm like, bro, these people are goats in the industry. Like what about me did you like?
Yeah.
A lot of it just came down to my mindset, like just how I presented myself, how I kind of just like when I step into the room, like I bring an energy that he was seeking. But it was the managerial experience at the hospital that I was doing in Boston. It was the fact that I held down 2 to 3 positions at once. So I was able to multitask, right? It was the managerial and the leadership experience that I was gaining from all these different odd jobs I was doing in Boston, which that was the moment that I realized why I needed to be in the wilderness or in the valley for those 5 years, was because that's why I say it's not what I wanted, but it was what I needed for the thing that I wanted. And so that's where
That's
things
great.
kind of went full circle. And I was like, so it was all of those experiences in Boston that at the time I was thinking like, why this? Like, why do I have to do this? This is not sports. Like, what am I doing here? I'm wasting my time, right? It was all those moments. That was the reason why he had hired me, which was, it blew my mind when he told me that. I was like,
That's
that's
crazy.
wild. Yeah.
So at any point in that stint, like that beginning stint of, okay, I got the call, I know I'm gonna get this job, I got the job, I know why. Was there any like what is the word? Imposter syndrome? Was there any I'm not good enough, I don't know what to do, anxiety? Like how was that thought process the first 3 months, the first 6 months? Of building a team for UM and like being on the field with all these athletes, and this is a big school. Like this is
Yeah.
not. I'm not gonna name a school because I'm not gonna I'm not gonna have any schools hating me right now. But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
UM is UM.
Yeah.
How was that thought process?
Yeah. I mean, I was immediately flooded with that kind of imposter syndrome, the anxiety, because I'm stepping into a leadership. I was in a director position, and so and I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, I 5 years ago, there's the last time I ever was around this space, right? So a lot of those thoughts came into mind. There was that anxiety, but ultimately, I had to kind of have grace for myself and say, listen, like, I made it this far. There's obviously a reason why I'm here. Let's learn, right? And I dedicated the first year to learning. I dedicated the first year to being okay with making mistakes, being okay with apologizing to coaches if there was a mistake that happened, not getting too hard on myself, because I understood that, hey, year one, I'm not changing anything. I'm just learning. I'm learning the ropes. I'm learning the pace in which this whole system operates. I'm learning the dynamics of different teams. I'm learning the dynamics of the different personalities of admin and coaches. And there's just so much to learn. So for me to put that pressure on myself of that, like, hey, day one, you need to have everything figured out, it was just an unrealistic expectation for myself. And it was something that it was a conversation I had with my leader at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it was an expectation that I kind of set for myself with his kind of approval. Like, hey, this year I'm not changing anything. I'm not coming in and shifting all these things around. There was obviously a couple high priority tasks that I did need to look into and start changing, but it wasn't like I needed to do this huge overhaul year one. And so that
Yeah.
kind of just allowed me to kind of just get out of my feelings a little bit. And I think the feelings were happening because I was there, and like I was saying, nobody else was there. Everybody was on vacation. So it's like if I needed a question to be answered, I didn't have that. And so I
You're
think
like,
that's where a lot of
guys,
it. Yeah, I'm
guys.
like, is anybody here? Sometimes on like a Monday, I'd be the only person in the entire facility. So it's
Oh
like,
my gosh.
what? Yeah. So what are we doing? But yeah, so I think it's normal to kind of have that, especially when you enter a new space. Even if you have experience in that space, I think it's okay to acknowledge like, hey, there is this kind of pressure, this anxiety. However, what's the reality of the situation? Because what we put into our minds is very powerful, whether it's true or not true. And so it's like, what is the actual reality of the situation? And let's base our feelings and our thoughts off of facts versus off of like just how I feel and how I perceive a situation to look like.
Right. I think it's so important to just like relish in that notion of it's okay to practice, it's okay to learn, it is okay to give yourself the grace of allowing yourself time to just be a student. A lot of that imposter syndrome when we walk in is because we feel like other people are expecting us to be something that we don't think that we are yet.
Mm,
And just allowing yourself to be where you're at, whatever that may be. And for different people, you're obviously going to be at different levels. But allowing yourself to just be present in that and to always be a student, I think is so powerful. And I think it would give people the gift of patience to their goals and to their dreams, instead of just being like, oh, I tried 3 months and I screwed up, and now I
Yeah.
can't, like, now this is all trash. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, no, you're
Yeah.
fine, we'll get there. It's something that I've never been good at, because just as like an inherent people pleaser, I always want to deliver above expectation.
Hmm.
And by always being in that realm of, am I doing good enough, am I doing good enough, I end up screwing up and then not doing good enough. And it's something that I have, in the past few years, really tried to just sit back and say, people chose me for a reason. Those
Hmm.
are their facts. Like you said, this is not, this is what they see of me. I will
Hmm.
take that whether I believe it or not. And I will continue to learn and be a student.
Hmm.
And I love that you allowed yourself a year of time to do that, especially in your dream role,
Yeah.
like in this great opportunity that you had. That takes a lot of balls,
Yeah.
like that takes
Yeah.
a lot of confidence and courage and faith, big
Yeah.
faith, to
Yeah.
be like, you know what, I'm going to give myself time to grow and to learn. And I know it'll work out in some which way.
Yeah.
So take me through that journey, that experience. What was the realization of being in that position? And then, we'll go on to present day, where you're
Yeah.
at, all of that stuff.
Yeah. So working at UM was definitely a dream come true. It was something that I needed to experience. I think it was just this like tugging itch that I had, because it was a goal that I had set for myself. What we're on, I mean, we're almost like 8, 9 years ago, right? And I hadn't been there yet, right? But I was still okay with like the present state. So I was like, an opportunity that I needed to take, because I needed to experience it, right? Um, so I was there for a total of 3 years. I actually resigned in December 1st of last year. But it was an amazing experience, and I say, first and foremost, the athletes were just some of the most fun, respectable, kind, driven people that I had ever been around. And when you have 18, 19, 20-year olds that are inspiring you every single day, and that are looking to you for answers on how to help their performance, I mean, that relationship, you don't find that often, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times, like when I had, in my private practice, it was a lot of my clientele were older. They were not these 18, 19-year olds. And so when I was able to enter a space where I was exclusively helping individuals that not only are at the peak of their athletic performance, but they're at such their minds are still being formed and molded, and they're impacted by the culture, by the world, right? It was a
Yeah.
very unique space for me to be in, and I felt like God had called me to be there more than just to like fuel these athletes, making sure that they got everything they need for game day and their travel meals and all that. But it was to really use nutrition as a vehicle to impact their lives in a healthy way, and to instill disciplines into them that were going to take them, far, even life after an athlete. So I felt like it was a 3 year discipleship at the University of Miami, where I was able to really just pour into these athletes, but vice versa. I mean, they poured into me. So from that standpoint, I miss that a lot. I miss those athletes. On the flip side, it was, again, we have seasons of life where just there's different callings, there's different responsibilities, life shifts, right? And so I think when I left I was at a season where I needed to be more present at home. I needed to be a better husband, and I needed to improve on life outside of and all of those different things had kind of taken a back seat, because was my baby for 3 years, and I had poured
Yeah.
everything I had into it. So I didn't have anything else to give outside of the space. And so I realized that, I acknowledged it with the help of my wife and kind of like other people that are in my close circle. And I knew that it was time to move on. It was time to allow that position to be somebody else's blessing, and for me to kind of take a step away and do things that kind of poured back into myself, and that I was able to just create a life that I was happy and I was proud of. And so that's kind of what ended my time at UM. And funny enough, I actually ended up back at the hospital that I was at before going to UM. So again, it was a great experience. I was completely okay with staying there, but then UM gave me the call. So it's divine intervention, how things work, where you're at a spot, you're happy with it, you leave a good impression on them, you go, you do your thing, you live out this dream that you wanted to, but then when that is not the case anymore, they welcome you back with open arms, and it's like I never left. And so
Yeah.
I've just been super blessed to be able to be back in that space.
I love that you were happy there. You were cool with it, and you took the risk to be like, all right, my dream is calling me. Literally, my dream is calling me.
Yeah, yeah,
And should I or shouldn't I? You take the risk to be like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna live out this dream. And you were still taken care of. You got to experience that. You got to live it. You got to, put that notch in your belt.
hmm,
And then when it was time to just, when it was time to focus on something else, again, it was just like delivered to you. Well,
yeah,
here's the home that you were happy at all this time.
yeah,
You went on vacation. Now you're back and you're in
yeah,
this space. So I want to pivot really quick because obviously we have the hospitals, we have all this experience, but since I've known you, you also had your private practice, which you
hmm,
touched upon.
yeah,
And so now we have Buenos Diaz Performance, which
yes.
I love. I want to talk about how that was born. Obviously you had been doing the private practice for years before that. What did having your own practice look like? What was that whole journey up until today? And then we'll go into more of like what is your value, what is your philosophy, all of
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah, so I was in the private practice space for 3 years before kind of shifting back into kind of like the corporate world exclusively. And so when I had a excuse me, when I had a private practice, I had partnered up with my good friend Tony, who was actually the guy that I moved to Gainesville with. And he's been a phenomenal friend, phenomenal mentor to me. But again, it just was in a different season of life, and that transition happened. So after everything with so during my time at I got into running marathons. It was something that I wasn't planning on doing. It was just one of those where I was at a position, like I was saying, I had sacrificed my health for my career, and I was like, I need a drastic change. I need a goal that is going to get me on track, at least start this momentum train. And
Right.
so I was like, what better than to just sign up for a marathon, right? So I signed up for a marathon, hired a coach, started
Had
training
you been
for it.
training oh, you hadn't been training. You were
I hadn't
like this.
been training. No, I ran the Miami Marathon, I believe in 2023, and I didn't train for that. I was just like full send. It was awful. I finished in like 6 hours. My knees were all blown up. I was It was just not. It wasn't it. And so, but I
Yeah.
was like, hey, I completed a marathon. I can check that off of my 30-year old Nate bucket list, right? That's what people do nowadays. Um, so then I was like, you know what? I ran a marathon like a year ago. Like let's try this again, but let's do it the right way. So hired a coach and just dedicated really a lot of my time to running. And running not only got me in phenomenal shape, but it did so much for me mentally. I actually, as a baseball player, we never liked running, but now I can say that running is ingrained in what I do. And it's actually, I think, necessary for me, for my mental health. It just allows me to carve out time in my day to both get physically fit, but also to just be in silence. It's my time that I use for prayer. It's time that I use to talk to God. It's time that I'm able to think deeply because I do it first thing in the morning time. So I don't have any distractions. People aren't even up at that time. And so it has just created this solitude for me that has been an absolute game changer for me. And so that was like the basis of why I wanted to jump back into the private practice sector, but focus on the endurance, focus on the runner, focus specifically on like the beginner runner, the person that's like trying to get into it for the first time, because I knew what having a coach for me, like what that did for me. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be able to be that for someone else. And so now my private practice has shifted from before it was more like just general weight loss. A lot of my clientele were like middle-aged women, either just after having a baby. Like that was my main focus group. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
now it's turned into really people of all ages that are looking to just like get into the sport of running, or that have ran in the past but didn't have a good experience. And so what I'm trying to do now is couple the training, right? So like, what do I actually need to do to get better at running, with what do I need to fuel my body with to ensure that my running is something that I can do for the rest of my life. And so
Right.
really I'm trying to give the gift that running gave to me to other people.
I love that so much. I love that you're tying in this hobby that you had with, that turned into this daily meditation and this daily prayer that
Mhm.
you are doing while you're running with your nutrition. I think it's so unique and special. Um, but what is something that you what is the question I'm trying to ask? What is your philosophy when it comes to that, when it comes to like the passion that you have towards your business? Because this is just a hobby that you have.
Mhm.
This isn't something that, people have hobbies all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that they want to be in that position of leadership, which I know is a recurring theme for you to kind of, step up to the plate and try to lead in whatever you're doing. But what made you want to marry the two? And what also was this is like a two-part different kind of question, but like what was that spark that was like, okay, I want to open up a practice again? Did you have a good experience before? Was
Mhm.
it just like, oh, I've done this so many times, who cares, I'm going to do it again? um all of that thought process.
Yeah. I think what turned it into something that I decided to kind of jump back into the private practice. 'Cause prior to that, I had been having clients on the side, but it was more so like during my time at UM, it was like really athlete specific. So like track athletes. And so I had been able to gain experience with working with these athletes, obviously at UM, on a private, like kind of like that one-on-one setting. So for me, it was, I know the space of private practice. I mentor interns on it. It's something that I did for 3 years, and I had a good experience doing it. Um, but this time, I wanted to do it in a way that it wasn't rushed. And what I mean by that is when I first did it, it was all about getting out of corporate and going exclusively private practice off the rip. Right. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself to like post, market. I mean, I was posting on social media every single day for 2 years. Right. And so it, it broke me down. Like it was not something that was long lasting. But I also think the intention initially behind it wasn't from the ideal place. I wouldn't say it was from a bad place. It just wasn't from the ideal place. It
It
was
was,
some,
more out of desperation of like, I have to get this
I
done,
got to
I
get
have to
this
pay the
done.
bills.
I got to get out of corporate America. I got to, I want to be free. I want to be free. I want to have my own schedule. Like that was the motive. And
Instead of
so,
like, I want to pour into people, I want to deliver
correct.
my message. Yes.
Correct. Right. And so when I was doing that, I've kind of mentioned it here, like I I've always been a believer in God, in Christ, but I never allowed him to lead my life, right? It was always like, I believe in this, but I'm not going to let him lead, right?
You're the leader. I mean, you were like, yeah, I got
Exactly.
this.
Right. I had that mentality.
Yeah.
So this next phase or this next go at it, it's all about partnering with God with the mission of impacting people. If it means I'm impacting 2 people a month, 5 people a year, like I'm okay with that progress because I'm not doing this as a means to get out of my 9 to 5. I love my 9 to 5. I love it at Baptist, right? I'm doing this because I know the gift that running gave me, and I know what it opened for me and how it allowed me to deal with a lot of mental health issues that I was having. And so I want to be able to showcase how to do that, right? I want to be able to help people find the fun in physical fitness again. I want to show people how fueling their body properly just makes them feel the sense of vitality that they've never maybe felt in their life. Because at the end of the day, we all have a mission. We all have something, a gift that is given to us. But if we're not able to pursue that, if our health and our wellness and our mental health and our mental state is inhibiting us from doing whatever that mission is that God has given to us, then like, what are we doing? Right. And so what I'm trying to do is create a platform that people can just start their running, their fitness, their nutrition journey in hopes that it will allow them to experience a life where they feel ultimate fulfillment, they feel ultimate clarity, and they're able to feel this accomplishment of I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm doing it with the most vitality that I have.
I love that so much. I love that you want to give people the confidence. I love that you tie in God and his purpose for us into, like, that's something that people don't talk about. And it's so important to realize that we were put here to, you know, give off our gifts and give off our value.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we do that if we don't take care of ourselves?
Yeah.
And it's not just physical. It's also nutrition, which is what you're putting into your body. You're taught to pray over your food and to be grateful for it. I think we've kind of detached, a lot of us, from even honoring food in that way, honoring what it does to our body, and just, I mean, I think most of us just could bypass that part entirely because we're just, trying to fill this crave, or, I don't know. It's the relationship we have with food, the relationship we have with our bodies is so skewed by society that we have forgotten that we're supposed to connect with it for a bigger purpose.
That's so good. Yeah.
And I mean, and this is me just going off of what I've
Yeah.
heard you say, like you're the one that put that realization into my head of like, oh wow, that's such a beautiful way of looking at it. I am someone who my entire life I've been on a diet. I had 2 older sisters. My mom did every fad diet out there ever known to man. It's women coming up in a society that's teaching you to look a certain way and to be a certain way, and it's not out of love. It's
Right.
not out of love for your body. It's not out of love for this vessel that God, the universe, whatever you believe in, gave to you. It's not how do I, treat you well. I'm like looking at my body. That's how I healed that.
Yeah.
I like treat it as a separate entity now, but it's like, how do I eat because I love my body, not because I want to punish my body? How do I work out because I love my body, not because I want to punish my body? And those two things are completely separate,
Yeah.
It's people want to get in the best physique ever, and that is the goal. It's almost like when you opened your private practice the first time. It was
Mhm.
like, I'm doing this because I have to, because I got to get out of it, because I got to look good, because I got to be sexy, because, and it's like, it's this thought of desperation of like, there's something wrong with the present. There's something wrong with this, and I
Right.
have to do this because I have to make it right, instead of just being like, no, everything is right, and what I need to do is pour love into it in order
Yeah.
for it to flourish. So you're the one who put that whole epiphany in my head, and I love it so much
Hmm.
because I work out because I love my body.
Love
And I
that.
eat good because I love my body. And one and the other, like they're two separate entities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, do you want to
No, that's,
elaborate on that? Because
yeah,
you
no,
say it so good.
yeah, I'll just, I want to echo, kind of what you're saying of like, um, we do things out of love for our bodies, but, as a believer, you know, I think of like, what are the biblical ramifications? Like, what does the Bible say about us taking
Yes, I want to
care
know what the
of
Bible says. Tell
our
me.
bodies, right? And so the Bible clearly states, our bodies are a vessel for the Holy Spirit, right? And so the Holy Spirit is God residing in us. And so it's a very playful way of thinking about it, but I'm like, if I'm looking at a hotel to stay in, am I looking for the one that is ran down, that's got, smells like smoke, like, or am I looking for the place that is kept tidy, the place that has light shining in it, right? And so that's kind of how I playfully think about it, is that like, I want the Holy Spirit to reside in a place that I'm proud to call
Oh,
home, right? And so that right
so good.
there is is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about taking care of this body that I have, because I was not always like this. I mean, I was a full-on dietitian at the University of Miami, and I went and got lab work. I was 30, 40 pounds overweight. My lab work was awful. I mean, it was bad. I'd never received results like that. And so I knew at that moment like I needed to change, right? But then also when we look at the Bible, like Jesus died for us. Like our bodies were bought at a price, right? And so when somebody gifts you something, right, do you just like throw it around and, like, what do you do with that thing? You cherish it, right? You take care of it, you nurture it, right? And so
Oh my
that's
God,
kind of
I love it.
how,
God gave us the gift of this.
yeah,
And like, instead of having it like, with lighting and taking care of it, and I'm over here just like it's dusty in the basement, or I'm
yeah,
just like,
yeah, yeah,
eh.
yeah. Yeah.
I love
And
that.
and sometimes, and I don't want to, I don't want to make light of, people have health conditions and people have genetics that make it difficult for, for them to lose weight. And I'm not denying that. However, I have seen many people that are in those situations that have overcome because of how they're viewing their situation, right? Because a lot of us can say, oh well, it's just never going to work out for me because it's my genetics, I'm just never going to be able. But that's no excuse to quit, right? And
Yeah.
so a lot of what scripture says is going against what like culture wants us to do, right? And so when we think about our health and fitness journey, right, we think about like having to wake up early to get that workout in because we know our day is going to be crazy. Choosing a more premium fuel source, even though like we're really just always craving pizza and wings, which I love pizza and wings. Not saying anything
No,
bad about
my
that,
chicken calls my
but
name every day.
yeah, but making that decision against what the body wants, right? We always talk about like in scripture, like dying to the body, right? Well, that's hard to do, right? Dying to our flesh and allowing our spirit to move us forward. Like that's hard. That's going against the grain, but that's biblical. And so I view our health in that same light where it's our bodies were bought at a price. It is the dwelling place of the Holy Spirit. So just those two verses alone give me enough motivation to say, you know what? It is not so much us taking care of our body as like, okay, I guess I'm going to do it. No, I think it's a direct commandment to take care of our body. I think it's something that God wants us to do in order to fulfill our mission and in order to fulfill what He has ordained in our life. And so that's kind of what what I'm trying to put out there. And I do understand like people believe in different things, but that's the motive that I have, and that's kind of where my belief system has led me, and that's how I've been able to kind of merge like health and wellness and spirituality together, is that they
I,
are not two separate entities. They are very much connected. And so when you're not taking care of one, then the other one tends to suffer and vice versa. So
I love that so much. There's so many things I want to say. There's like a list, and as I add to the list, the first one knocks off and I forget. But
uh-huh.
like just everything you're saying is it's such, and this is why I'm so excited that you're here, because it's such a different take on this entire industry, because it's an industry. It's an industry to make us unhealthy, and
Yep.
it's an industry then to go back and make us healthy. And you touched upon people with illnesses, diseases, disabilities, and people and weight. There's always something you can do that is a better decision than something else. So
Correct.
even if because even if you do have an illness, even if you do have a disease, even if you do have a disability, even if you have an injury, that debilitates you from going the extra mile like everyone else can, you can wake up and take 3 steps.
Hmm.
You can choose the banana over the ho ho. Like there's certain things that you can do, and at the end of the day, when you talk about that, it is a direct commandment from the creator to take care of our vessels. It's also the easiest one.
Hmm.
If I'm supposed to respect my neighbor and honor my neighbor, and my neighbor is an asshole, then guess what? That's a harder,
Difficult.
that's a harder, command for me
Right.
to be like, God, I need
Yeah.
you on
Yeah.
this one, because there's external forces coming at
Sure.
you all the time that honor thy mother and father. Well, guess what? My mother and father are, a little sassy sometimes.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
hard to do. So
Yeah.
having the choice over, what you can control on the input of your health, on what you can control on the output of your health, that is one of the easiest ways to honor the word, honor God, honor
Hmm.
whatever you believe in. Because, and I'm going to talk to the non-believers here, right? Because
Hmm.
everything has a way of hitting people. Whether you believe in the creator, whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever the case may be, like this is the one thing that doesn't go anywhere.
Hmm.
You leave your car in the driveway, you leave your house on that block of cement, you leave your wedding ring in the jewelry jar when you're gonna go do deadlifts, like everything you are able to leave behind except for your body. And
Hmm.
so if you are someone who wants to put value into this world, to who wants to wake up and just feel your best, you have to take care of both things. And taking care of your physical health, like working out, and what you put into your body, that will help the mental, that will help
Hmm.
everything around you, because there's so many lessons in those two basic things that we can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who, it may be that person with a disability or an illness or, an injury, or maybe they don't have any of that, and what they're really struggling with is their mental prison, or someone who's just like, I have no idea where to start.
Yeah.
What is something that you would say to that person?
Yeah. So I'm going to answer those kind of two separate. The person that may have things going against them that make it harder, and then the person that's just looking to start. Like, how do I just get started with something? So
Yeah.
to the first person, I would say the best thing you can do and this is what I would do with my athletes that were injured. So I'm speaking from like direct experience from, of someone who was an elite performer, a starter on a team who is now injured out for 6 months, right? So like, how do you overcome that mental barrier? I would first say start with gratitude. I know every probably book has said it, and the Bible says it, but there's a reason why people talk about gratitude so much. And it's because it realigns your mind from thinking about what I don't have, what I can't do, what is impossible to do, to refocusing on like, what do I have? What resources are available to me? How can I move forward? And so, right, just waking up and saying, hey, you know what? I was able to put 2 feet on the ground and take a deep breath. You know what that means? That means I can walk, right? Yeah, that may not mean I can go out and do the crazy workout, but hey, at least I can walk, right? Or, you know what? I still am able to cook. So I'm going to actually make healthier food choices and maybe cook more at home, right? So it's about identifying what you have and how can you maximize the results based on what you have. And for someone that's injured, or somebody that's like going through rehab or therapy or treatment, like things will eventually get better, right? But what inhibits that is if we're in a bad mental state and we're bad physical state, right? So I always tell my athletes, you're never going to get better or healed if you're not taking care of your body while you're injured, right? And so that's kind of what I would say there. Start with gratitude and then just do the things that you do have full control of, because everything in life, we either have control of it or we don't have control of it. Get rid of the stuff out of your mind that you can't control and just focus on the things that you can control. So that's what I would say to that person. For the individual that's just starting out, and I guess this could be tied into to person scenario number one, is choose your ceiling and choose your floor, right? What do I mean by that? Your ceiling is like, what is the all out thing that you're going to do to feel like, hey, I kicked butt today. I got 2 workouts in, I meal prepped all my stuff, I took my supplements, I just knocked it out. That's your ceiling. What's your floor? Well, my floor is doing 100 push-ups and making sure I have an apple, right? So what's your ceiling? What's your floor? Stay in between that, right? Be okay if you only were able to get, if your floor is 10,000 steps for the day, that's okay. You at least got 10,000 steps. That's your floor. If your ceiling is what I mentioned before, great. Stay between that, right? So that allows you to have flexibility, right? Because life happens. And if you might have had this awesome day planned out, but hey, it didn't go your way. So, hey, now the floor is all you can do. Then, hey, you at least still had a successful day. So determine your floor, determine your ceiling, and then stay in between that each day, right? And that can be something that you apply to your weeks, to your months, to your year, and say, hey, for the year of 2025, my ceiling is going to be, working out 4 days a week, and my floor is going to be 10,000 steps a day, right? I'm going to just live in between that. And that really just allows this shift from going from it's an all or nothing, which tends to lead in disappointment, right? To a place of sustainability and something that you can do long term because you have options now, right? Versus it just
I
being
love
like,
that.
it's got to be this and only this. And if I don't do this, I'm failing. And
And I'll just start next Monday.
I'll just start next Monday. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
I
So
love that. I love giving yourself big wins and small wins.
correct.
Like even if all I do is 30 minutes on a yoga mat or like 30, whatever the case may be, at least I moved my body today. But if I can
Mm-hmm.
do a 3 mile run or whatever, like, all right, I kicked
Crushing
ass.
it.
And
Yeah.
either
Yeah. Yeah.
way, you're working towards progress. You're doing something. Maybe it's not a grand show, but those micro movements, those micro habits are what's going to lead to growth down the line. So I love that so
100%.
much. And that kind of ties into my next question.
Mm-hmm.
What are one, two, three, hacks that you have for people to stay consistent? So I love that one. That's definitely one of them. Make
Yeah.
sure you give yourself small wins.
Yeah.
What else?
So we'll keep that one, the ceiling and the floor example. My next one is not really, it's not a sexy hack like the first one was.
We only like
Um,
sexy hacks here.
I know the industry loves the sexy hacks, but
Yeah.
um, I want to talk about a principle, and I want to talk about a mental state that we need to be in, because at the end of the day, a lot of times we look for, the sexy hacks are the things that motivate us, right? It's like, oh, I got this little bit of motivation. Okay, I'm going to go to the gym, right? But we have to start looking at consistency as something that we do when we feel like it or when we don't feel like it. And I think a lot of times what it comes down to is we confine health and wellness into a season. We say, hey, I got summer's coming up. For 3 months, I'm going to hit it hard, right? Or, hey, I got
You
this
gotta
wedding
look
in
good
Jamaica.
for
Yeah,
the boats,
I
the
got, I got,
regatta
it's
or
boat
whatever.
season. Hey, we're in Miami. It's boat season. So like, we got to get right. Right. So we're creating a deadline, meaning, hey, all or nothing until this deadline. And then what happens after? We're like, we made it. We're good. I'm just going to go back to my old ways. When we can view health and wellness as a lifelong journey, what I truly mean is like you're doing it every single day. Like there is no end. You're doing it until you're buried 6 feet under, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you look at it in that sense, it just changes the perspective, because now we can't just rely on the motivation of boat season or the motivation of looking good in a bikini on January 4th when we're going on our vacation, right? It's now, no, 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 no. The motivation is to be healthy, to be strong, to be fit. And in order to do that, that requires not motivation, it requires discipline at that point. And so people need to embrace discipline, because that is truly, I could give you all the sexy hacks to stay motivated. I can tell you all the David Goggins quotes in the world to get you motivated, but motivation is like a spark. It happens and then it's gone, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what really keeps that fire burning is saying, you know what? I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways because of the commitment that I made to myself and my health and my wellness, right? So kind of pairing this idea of discipline with like figuring out why you want to be healthy. Like, what is your why? Like, we talk about that in business. Like, why do you want to start a business? Why do you want these financial goals? Like, why do you want this? Right? What is your why? Same thing with your health and wellness. It's like, what is your why behind doing this for the rest of your life? Right?
Yeah.
And so I think when you have a strong enough why, then that discipline really kicks in. Like for me, my why is what we talked about, comes from the word. Like it is a promise, it is a commandment, right? And so even when I don't feel like doing it, I'm going to do it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I would say that. And then the third one would be, there's never a time where somebody goes to the gym or works out or eats a healthy meal and was like, man, I really regretted doing that, right? So a lot of times we let our emotional state before the activity determine whether or not we do it. Where I want to encourage people, think about the feeling after, right? Think about like this.
That's so good.
Yeah, this morning I had a speed workout run that I had to do. I was not looking forward to it. It was 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, bro, what am I doing right now? But I thought to myself on that run, bro, when I get to click my watch and say end workout, that feeling that I'm going to have of that I just crushed this workout before my neighbors are up, before the dogs are up, the chickens are still sleeping, like that's powerful. That feeling
Yeah.
is powerful. So I always tell people, don't think about how you feel in the moment. Think about how you're going to feel afterwards, whether you do it or you don't, because we all have that feeling of when we don't do something, we're like, dang, I really, I should have gone to the gym, or man, I don't feel good. I don't feel that vitality.
Those are the initiations, I will say, of self uh of self mistrust, I think. Knowing that you should do something, saying you're going to do it, and then selling yourself out. And
Mm.
it's like it's okay every once in a while. There's gonna be days where you're just like,
Hmm.
I'm not, and whatever. But again,
Hmm.
creating that floor to ceiling, giving yourself the grace of, on those days that you don't feel like it, giving yourself a little something.
Yeah.
But when you just completely sell yourself out, it's you start to not trust yourself, and that carries through everything. And that's
Hmm.
something too that like I've realized. Um, with working out and nutrition, again, just like it's the easiest commandment probably to just be like, all right, I can control this, let me go do something.
Yeah.
It's also the easiest way to build self trust again, to trust yourself to do what you're going to do. Because if you say,
Yeah.
okay, tomorrow I'm giving myself the floor of just doing, a 30-minute brisk walk or whatever that is to you. And obviously those levels change
They
as,
change. Yeah.
as you progress. Um, you gave yourself that win of being like, okay, I said I was going to do something and I did it. But when you
Yeah.
show up and you know you're supposed to do something and you don't do it and you don't do it, that lack of trust that you have for yourself is going to show up in your workplace. It's going to show
100%.
up with your children. It's going to show up with your husband. It's going to show up, or wife. It's going to
Yep.
show up in every aspect. So I
Yeah.
love that. I love those
How,
three.
yeah.
Well,
How you do anything is how you do everything. It's a quote that I've kind of tattooed in my mind. And again, I'm by no means, I'm not perfect in my actions. I'm still a work in progress, but it's these little things that I think about and I remember, and I'm like, okay, well, if I, like you're saying, if I promise myself something that I'm going to do something and I don't do it, okay, like, yeah, that happens once, okay, but then like, okay, sorry, it's starting to become a habit now,
it
okay,
becomes
like
so easy to do. Yeah.
easier to do, and then you start seeing that trickle in other areas of your life. And so what I would say on like the flip side of that is, by someone who takes care of their physical health, right, whether it's with their nutrition, physical fitness, obviously we want it to be both, that says so much about your character, right? How you like step into a room, right? If you are looking like healthy, and that has so many different implications, but like if you're someone that is taking care of your body, that is eating the right things, that shows, hey, this person is disciplined, right? Like this person
Mhm.
has discipline. This person shows up when they say they're going to show up, right? And so there's a lot of like other nonverbal cues that go along with you taking care of yourself that like you may not be thinking of, but other people, when they look and they're like, oh wow, like hey, this person is actually doing,
100.
like they're walking the walk, they're talking the talk. Obviously for me even more so, because I'm in the space, so I have to, there is a
Yeah.
certain image that like I have to upkeep, but um
You can't
that
look like the nutty professor coming
that's
in.
that's right, that's right.
Being like, this is,
Yeah, in my
you should
profession,
be.
unfortunately, like people listen to those that walk the walk, right? I think like any profession, right? If I'm going to a doctor and he's telling me to stop smoking, but then I see him in the parking lot huffing down packs of cigs, like what? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So there's a level of care that I have, that I keep up with my body for that. But ultimately, and I kind of will give like a bonus hack, because I feel like if you've been sticking around this long, you are just hungry for more information. But uh, along the lines of giving yourself grace, is I never let more than 2 days go without being physically active. Okay, so like
Love that.
again, if that's like, hey, we're going on a weekend trip, okay, like have grace for yourself, like you don't have to like chill for a couple of days, right? But don't let more than 2 days go without being physically active. And so I've instilled that, like when I travel, if I'm going on a week long vacation, I still keep that mentality of like, yeah, a workout may not be the hour and a half gym that I'm going to, but hey, before Janelle or before the family gets up, I'm going to go and do a quick 30-minute run, right? Just
Love that.
to keep that momentum going, because a lot of times where I see people fall off is when they go on that vacation, or they take time away, they built so much momentum, but then they go on that vacation and then they lose that momentum. So yes, I want people to enjoy themselves on vacation, but let's stop viewing working out and exercising as something bad, or that's something that's like non-desirable. Like, right, if we're truly called to take care of our bodies, like it's just like eating. Like you don't go and be like, oh, I gotta eat again on vacation. Like, right, it's like same thing. Like if we want to find something that we enjoy doing. And so when you go on vacation, like set those non-negotiables for yourself. Say, hey, you know what? I'm going on a week-long vacation. I'm going to get at least 2 workouts in,
Yeah.
right? And it may only be 30-minute workouts, but just set those contracts with yourself, right?
And
Like
it
set
could
it.
be also, it could be a win-win. You could be like, I'm going to go do a bike tour. of
There
this
you
new,
go.
and there you go.
There you
You just
go.
uh, married the two. And I will
Yeah.
say also, just bringing back your point of like you showing up in a room and it looks like you take care of yourself in all aspects of life. And this is something that I like press into my girls' head. If you don't respect yourself, you cannot expect anyone else to respect you. And so,
Totally.
and that goes into everything. When they write a paper and they come and show me and their handwriting looks like chicken scratch, I'm like,
Mhm.
this looks like you did not have the respect for yourself to
Mm.
take the time to dedicate what you're doing. And how you do one thing, like you said, is how you do everything. And
Yep.
so you coming into a room, and again, I just want to press like, it's not just about weight. You know, like there's this thing of like wanting to be skinny or wanting to be buff. That's not, you can have that and still not take care of your body. And still,
Correct.
like when you walk in and you're healthy, your brain is optimized, your joints aren't inflamed, you know, like
Yeah.
there's your stomach's not upset because you decided to eat Taco Bell. I mean, I love Taco
Yeah.
Bell, but you know, don't
Yeah.
get me.
Yeah. I get it. I get it.
Um, then you can't walk in at your utmost self and you're ultimately disrespecting yourself. So if you want other people to respect you, you have to show up like you respect yourself.
Absolutely.
So I love that. I want to ask you, what is your favorite go-to snack? You know, people are on the run, they're busy. What can they always keep on them that it's like, don't cheat, you came prepared?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So I always like to have I always like to have a protein and a carb on deck at all times, right? So my carb source is always a piece of like hand fruit, right? So it can be an orange, an apple, or a banana. I say that because they can be refrigerated or they don't have to be refrigerated, right? Or pears, like right, anything that you can just like have, right? A hand fruit. And then for protein, what I've been into lately have been these like dried edamame.
Mm.
So, and I get like the wasabi one because I have this like weird like for the stinging of wasabi in the nose. And so that's what been one of my snacks. And the other one, if it's not the edamame, I do like a high protein yogurt, right? So I usually will do like an Oikos yogurt or whatever has a high amount of protein in it. So that's been like those have been my two go-tos, but shelf stable, you don't need refrigeration, hand fruit, and the dried edamame has been my go-to so far.
Love. What is your next or what is your dream race?
So next race I have coming up, I do have a half marathon in Sunrise that's coming up in March. And then I'm doing the High Rocks in Miami, which is more of like a fitness strength competition. But the big one for 2025 that I am scared but ready for is I'm doing a full Ironman in November. So I will be doing 2.4 mile swim, 114-mile bike ride, and a full marathon all in one day. So I'm excited, but it's one of those goals. Like it's truly a goal that scares me, which means I picked the right goal.
Yeah.
So I'm
If
ready.
it's not scary, it's not worth doing for
That's
sure.
right. That's right.
What is one myth about running and or nutrition that you wish more people understood, and or what is something about running or nutrition that you just really want people to know?
I think a common myth around running is that you have to be like super thin and skinny and almost unhealthy looking to be a successful runner or to enjoy running. And I work with clients of all different body shapes and sizes. I myself am not like a thin dude. And so I just want people to know that running is for all body types. It's for all fitness levels. And it's something that if you dedicate time to, you will be good at running. And so, from that standpoint, for running, I would say that. From the nutrition aspect, I will have to say, ooh, honestly, from the nutrition aspect, I like to equate, thinking about food as either a deposit or a withdrawal from your energy and your vitality. So not to say like, and I don't want to like make it seem like, hey, if you eat bad things, like you're all, like enjoy your cake, enjoy the win, enjoy all of that stuff, right? But what are you doing 80% of the time, right? 80% of the time, are you withdrawing or are you depositing into that energy, high vitality? And so when you think about what am I doing the majority of the time, think of it kind of like that is you have a bank account full of energy, full of vitality. The things that you're putting in, is it taking away or is it adding to that?
I love that. I always put uh, eating, like food and money, in the same category. I think they're very much related. I think the root causes of them are very much related.
Mhm.
Um, and I notice that when my diet is poor, usually my spending habits are poor because I feel like it comes from the same place.
Mm,
Um,
that's good.
the way you feel about yourself and what you want out of life, it's the same energy that you're spending. And
Mm,
so I love that analogy. I love that. You always want to make more deposits than you want to make withdrawals,
yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
I'm not a financial planner that's going to tell you not to enjoy life and spend your money, like
Yeah.
that's why we make it, but also make sure you're making deposits for the long term while you're enjoying the present moment.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome. What is your favorite fad diet if you had to pick one? And if you absolutely can't, then why?
Um, so I don't think I have like a favorite fad diet because I just don't like believe in what they do. I will say that
Or do you believe in fad diets for, there's people who are heavier and they're like, I just need to do Atkins. I just need to do like, paleo or whatever. I don't even know what paleo is, but I
Mhm.
just need to do this for 6 months to lose the weight and then, then I can eat healthy. Like, what is.
Yeah, see, that just that like philosophy just goes against like what I believe in is that like we shouldn't be doing things for like a quick or like for a turnaround. So what I would say is that it's not really a diet, but it's just a principle, right? So if like you're trying to lose weight, like you can have carbohydrates, which Atkins doesn't allow you to have, or a carnivore diet. You can have fats, which some fat diets are really low in fats. Like you can have the different components of healthy eating. You just have to watch the quantities, right? So I always tell people, you want to lose weight, document or log how much food you're consuming. Log everything that you eat in a day. Then once you have data, then you can say, okay, I'm eating in a calorie surplus, which explains why I haven't been able to lose weight. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock all of my carbohydrate portions and proteins in half, or I'm going to take away the late night snack. And then I'm going to just do that day in and day out. And then I'm going to see if that changes. And 9 times out of 10, people start losing weight, right? But I think
The
people jump
awareness.
to fad diets too quickly without collecting data because some people are just like on the cusp of being able to lose weight, but what ends up happening is like let's say they're eating slightly over what they need to lose weight. They'll say, you know what, I'm going to ditch all the things that I like that I've been eating. I'm going to go to this highly restrictive diet. It's going to be miserable and I'm going to do it in an unhealthy way. Then I'm just going to rebound and do the whole yo-yo dieting thing. Whereas if they had just collected data and say, oh, I'm really not that far off. Let me just like cut my portion of this back a little bit. Let me like not eat, this at night that I'm used to eating every single day. And then let's see what happens to the body. And a lot of times they end up seeing the trend go down with their weight.
Yeah. Again, it just reminds me of money because you're basic like in order for us to optimize that, we have to do the budget. What are you spending your money on right now? And then
So
you can
good.
start to eliminate. It's the same thing with your diet. If you don't have a record of what you're putting in your mouth, because just like food, I mean, just like money, food is it's leaky. Like you
Yeah.
don't realize it, like you swipe
So
your card a
good.
million times, and you don't realize the spending that happens. Just like when I'm cooking for my family, and every 5 minutes I'm testing the food, and then my little one doesn't want to finish her plate, but we can't throw away food because there's
Uh-huh.
other people that are starving. I'm
Yeah.
eating off her plate, and I don't realize the leakiness of
Yeah.
what I'm doing, So again,
Yeah.
to me, both are come hand in hand.
Yeah. That
So I'm sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna say like with anything, whether it's the finances, and working with you, like really taught me this. But awareness precedes change. If we can't change what we don't know, right? So
Mhm.
for us to blindly say, all right, I'm gonna go on this diet. Well, like, do we need like we may not even need to, right? We just may need to just control a little bit of what we're consuming, but we won't know that until we collect the data. So awareness precedes change, and that has been kind of that's what my practice is around. Whether it's for run coaching or whether it's for nutrition counseling, we collect data first and then we prescribe.
Love. I love that. And I love that you say prescribe because food at the end of the day is medicine.
Yeah.
What does freedom mean to you?
Ooh, that's a good one. Freedom to me means being able to do the things that are high priority tasks to you and to be with the people that are most important. So I guess what I mean, like for me, is the most important thing to me is my wife and my family. So if I can maximize the time that I'm spending with my wife and my family, then I feel free. I feel like I'm free to do the things that really just pour into my soul. For other people, it's just having a bunch of time, right? For other people, it's money, right? So I think freedom is how people define like what is most important, what fills your cup the most. And when you can constantly have your cup filled daily, weekly, monthly, I think that is true freedom.
I love that. I love that idea of doing what fills your cup with the people who fill your cup. Like those two things together. I mean, yeah. And I love that because there is no focus on the dollar sign, right? Like there is no focus on what normal society says success is.
Mhm.
It's very much like what fills your cup with the people that fills your cup, and that can mean anything. I
Yeah.
love the simplicity of that definition.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. So speaking of simplicity, what is one simple luxury that you love to enjoy?
I love, that one's good. A simple luxury. I love, I love boat days in South Florida. I love going to the Keys and renting a boat out for the day. And again, creating a space for, to do what I love, being on the water with the people that I love most. And so that's something that I would say, again, at where I'm at right now in life, I'm training, I'm working, I'm helping people. So when I am not doing that, what really brings me pleasure and joy and just creates simplicity in my life is when I'm able to go down to the Keys with Janelle or with my parents or with friends, and we're just able to spend a day on the water and just disconnect from everything.
Love that. And shout out to your parents because they're amazing people.
Yes.
The next big thing that you are working towards.
um, from a business standpoint, um, again, it's just about creating awareness and creating impact. And so, we just launched Buenos Diaz Performance here in January. So, really just building this thing from the ground up. So I think really the this year is just about uh, reintroducing myself, reintroducing what this platform is designed to do. And so that's one. And one of the ways I'm doing that is doing a lot more like brand partnerships. So that's just going to expand the audience. And because ultimately, again, the goal with Buenos Diaz Performance is to impact as many people as I can, and really just pour into as many aspiring athletes, already athletes, whatever that looks like, beginners, and just really showcasing what being physically fit, both externally and internally, what that looks like. And so, really, exposure is a big thing. And then just documenting, right? I think that's one of the big things that I'm trying to do right now is just documenting my story and documenting what I'm doing, because ultimately I am like, I want people to see what I'm teaching, not just hear what I'm teaching. So we have this big Ironman coming up in November, and for someone that has never pushed his body to this limit, I want to showcase what that, what my teachings and how I incorporate that into my own life. So just trying to document more. I think that's something that I'm just trying to find the time and the resources just to like figure out what's the best way to just document this journey. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now with Buenos Diaz Performance, and with,
Love.
big fitness goals happening in November.
Amazing. So, for anyone listening that absolutely adores you now, because who wouldn't at this point? For everyone that is interested in the services that you offer and the value that you have to give, one, what would you say to them? And then follow that up with where they can find you.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is find me on either Instagram, so at Buenos Dias _performance. Reach out to me there, and I would love to have the conversation. Let's talk before, obviously I have a website too, buenosdiasperformance.com. That's where you can go to kind of see what services I offer, kind of like more or less what I charge for the services. But I would say first step is to you and I have a conversation, right? Whoever's listening, have the conversation first, because I think a lot of times we can look at something and create our own like preconceived notion of what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and may or may not be heard or seen based on what we see. And so I just want to make sure that for someone that is looking to jump into this space, like I want to talk to you personally, figure out what your goals are, figure out what your challenges are, figure out how I can best serve you, and decide if working together would be a good fit.
Love that. And what was I gonna say? Did you see? It doesn't fail. I was gonna say something else. Oh, that's what I always say. Okay, I forget my ending. That was amazing. I hope everyone goes and follows you and shares everything. Remember, guys, the number one thing he said that he was looking for was exposure. So this is where community is important. This is where uplifting everyone around you is important. So go follow Nate. Go follow Buenos Diaz Performance. Go share all his posts. He has super witty content. Like everything he posts is like, it's funny. So is there anything else that you'd like to leave on the Risk It table before we hop off?
I would say at the end of the day, life is always going to feel like a risk, especially if you are growing, especially if you are doing something new. So I feel like if you're not risking it, then you're not doing much. And so for those that have been tuning in to this podcast, for those that have been following Kristi, she is a great example of what risking it means. And so I want to end with that and just say thank you from the bottom of my heart for putting me on the podcast. And there was a lot of conversations that we had today that I'm like reflecting on. Like, you're asking me questions and I'm answering, and I'm like reflecting on it. And it's just a beautiful space that you've created here with this podcast. And so, yeah, thank you again for having me on. And I'm looking forward to potentially future conversations. And
Oh, sure. It's already happened. Like we have like three more episodes to go. This
we
is the
do. We have a
longest
lot. We have a lot.
that I've had. You're welcome. And thank you so much for the kind words. Thank you so much for accepting to be on my podcast. Obviously, I met you and Janelle when you guys were just getting out of college, still in that realm.
Hmm.
And both of you have this light about you that it's just pure. Like you guys are just pure good souls on this planet. And it's you're pure good souls, but you both are just like badasses at the same time, both of you. Like
Thank you.
just the constant theme of leadership that you have, the discipline that you have. That hat that you're wearing is like beast of
Let's
habit. That
go.
is 100% describing
Thank
you
you.
and Janelle. Both of you. You both have big goals. It is not like it is very aware that God put you here for a big purpose and big impact, and you both just know it. There's no question about that. You put one foot in front of another. You make everyone around you feel good. You invite people into your home to spread the word, and you're never vocal about how good it all is. I mean, you're never not non vocal about how good it is to just be in your presence. So I thank you for that. I thank
Yeah.
you for your time today. I'm definitely gonna also have Janelle come on here because she has
Yeah. 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 She
so
has an
much
amazing story as well. Yeah. Her
such a
story
great
is
story.
so inspiring.
So I'm definitely going to ask her too. But thank you so much for being
Of
here.
course.
Thank you for allowing me to just spread your light even further. And so,
Thank
on
you.
that note, I want everyone to remember that freedom is on the other side of risk. So let's risk it all, baby.
Love it.